and find a way to give them away. And it's this kind of interesting process where even when we're shooting, it's sort of step by step. It's like, you can give it to an actor can then embody it. Then you see it, as a scene, then you cut it together. So it's this kind of slow distancing. And I don't know, there's something that's very sort of meaningful about it to me, just in the sense that what else are you going to do with all that kind of baggage and shit other than, you gotta do something with it and turn it into something interesting, or give it to someone, to make it a little bit more relatable to other people or something. So,
and then when casting the series, how did you go about doing that, and how important was it to have authenticity with these roles and make it as personal to you as possible with, the people who are kind of playing this part in your, I guess, fictionalized life?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the key to it always is whenever I write something, and then once I cast an actor, I always like to talk to that actor about their own life, about what parallels I'm trying not to look at the screen because I don't want to look at myself. It's horrifying. So I'm a little discombobulated. But anyway, but that aside, I always try to just sort of have those conversations about the character, about the actor's own life, and try to find the kind of common ground. And then I always go back and do a pass on the character to sort of bring it a little bit closer to who that actor is as an individual, because they think the more personal it becomes to them, the more kind of ownership they have over it, and at the same time, the more delicate they are with the character, and the more they protect that character and care for that character. And I always think that's a really important thing, because it doesn't allow it to just be a job at that point. It takes on something that's a little bit more.
And Zendaya, this, a lot of people are used to seeing you in certain kinds of roles, of course, but this is outside something. It seems something we haven't seen you in this kind of role before. But what, speaking to what Sam just said, what drew you to the project, and what were your first thoughts when you were reading the character of Rue?
I think the best way to kind of describe, I guess, the feeling of reading, reading the script, I think, is the same kind of like of watching it, or some, is just like this. I just instantly felt this connection to it. I don't like reading script. I've said this story like a million times, but I really find it tough, like getting through scripts. And I had been reading a lot of different things, and I just couldn't connect to them. I couldn't finish them. It was the first thing that I not only got through so fast, but I wanted to read more, and I was invested in every single character, not just Rue. I was really, I think, captivated by the whole thing and the way it was written, and I wanted to know, like, who made it, and I wanted to, like, be a part of it, and I wanted to, it was one of those things. I think it's like, you can say it's kind of like, when but like, I read it and I was just like, this is something that I have to do. And, I met with Sam, and that was pretty much it. I was blown away at the fact that I was even, considered an option, because I really didn't think that, I had either done anything up until that point to showcase anything that would present the idea that, I could handle what was on those pages, so that, I think, scared me a lot, but it also, I think, in a lot of ways, gave me a lot of confidence, because it was, Sam kind of always looked at it as like, he would always tell me when I was worried or doubting myself. He's like, "You're fine. I'm not worried about you." And I think that confidence was like, just knowing that somebody wasn't worried about me. No, somebody was like, "You got this," you know, and I'm not worried about you. That is something that was like, oh, help.
Yo, I was right.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for being right and seeing something, because it's one of those things where it's like, inside you feel like you can do it, but you don't quite know yet if you can. You haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
I cared so much for Rue from the beginning. I felt so connected to her, whether it be like I don't know if she's like my little sister. I don't know what she is to me, but she's something and someone very close to me, and I care deeply about her. And so as she's making her decisions in life, I just,
Well, how does the role this role of Rue kind of speak to where you are at as an actor in your career?
Well, I think it was the first time that I didn't. I guess I just this sounds corny, but listen to my heart. It was the first time that I didn't think about, strategically this is what I should be doing, or this is the move that I should be making in my career. It just was like I just fell in love with what I read and the character, and there was no doubts in my mind that it was something that I needed and wanted to do. And it was purely just because I just felt connected to it, and I wanted to be a part of something that I felt was going to be special and going to I don't know. I just, all the fears that I had about maybe doing something that was more, risky, or whatever the words that I think people attach to that kind of step, or that kind of, next level in a career. I didn't think about them at all. Not at all while we were shooting. There wasn't, there was days where I doubted myself, and I was like, can I do this? But that's like, that was healthy, kind of like prove yourself that you can do it. But as far as like the outside noise, I really just was so, we have such a beautiful group of people that I get to wake up and go to work with every day, so I had no other thought than I just was excited to go to work. I was excited to wake up every day and play this character and be beside Hunter, beside Sam, beside, everyone at work, and just I was just living in it, and that I think was why I think it was able to, be just what it was, because it just I wasn't really thinking about the outside world. I didn't start thinking about that until it got real, when it started to coming out, and people.
Yeah.
That's when I started calling Sam like,
It's a little nerve-wracking. It was a little nerve-wracking.
But and for Hunter, how was it for you? Like when you read the script for the first time, and what attracted you to Jules, and how was your journey to Jules?
Yeah. I think the first time reading the script, like almost immediately, I was just kind of shook at how real it felt, or like how accurate it felt. It was like my first like full script I ever read, so I didn't have much to compare it to. But I mean, like a lot of the times when you watch a TV show about teenagers, you can tell like especially at the time I was a teenager, I was like, I don't know, like most teen TV shows, you can tell it's like not how teenagers would talk, but this kind of like captured whatever wave that was. And then with Jules in particular, I think I just remember like seeing her pretty clearly right away, like in my head, and like sort of like knowing what she looked like and how she was saying things and what she was talking, or like what she was, or like her energy. And it was altogether just like an exciting experience reading it and like experiencing those things for the first time.
And Hunter, you are very much an advocate for the LGBTQ community, and now that you have a platform like Euphoria, how do you want that, and just even Jules' own story, or just the show in general, to further that advocacy?
I don't know. like doing the show never really felt like advocacy. I don't think that's why like we made this show, you know, and I don't think that's like why I took this character on or anything. It was more just like she happened to be a member of that community and whatnot, and like while I'm really honored that people have like found resonance with that and like maybe feel seen or something, it was more about just sort of like what Jules is going through, and like her being her moves her throughout the world in like a specific way that's like special and exciting to tell as a story, because I know I would have loved to see this, like, if I was a part of it, you know?
Mm-hmm. I think, you know, this question could be for anyone, if anyone wants to chime in. You know, we are living in this interesting time of storytelling where, you know, going back to what I was talking about to Hunter about authenticity, inclusive storytelling, and we talk about it a lot in Hollywood. And it's not even just inclusive in terms of, you know, race, LGBTQ, but just like even stories that we haven't heard, you know. And I think Euphoria touches on that. And again, if anyone wants to chime in here, you know, how do you think Euphoria kind of propels new kinds of storytelling from these stories that often go unheard, or this truthful kind of storytelling that sometimes Hollywood could gloss over and kind of make very sanitized and saccharine?
It's well, I think that there's a couple components to it, right? We talk a lot about authenticity, and I think authenticity is important, but authenticity's you can achieve authenticity just by listening. I don't think it's the end all and be all. I think that part of what's key is to have a perspective about it, and to have a perspective as to who these characters are. And I think, for instance, like the question that that you guys were just talking about, it's really important that that it's not that we're looking at these characters from a human standpoint, and from a standpoint of empathy and understanding who they are inside of this world. And also, and I think that's ultimately what resonates more than anything else, is if we're approaching it with this if you're looking at the character and you're saying, this is a fully formed human being. She, you know, she can be this on the page, an actor comes, they bring more life to it, and it's just every step of the way you're breathing more and more life into a character. And until that character becomes a sort of living, breathing human being. I think that's kind of, I don't know, that's a perspective that I tend to think of it from, more so than just authenticity in a way, because it's also like there's emotional authenticity. I actually believe that I believe that on the show we're able to achieve a certain emotional authenticity through a kind of visual inauthenticity. You know what I mean? We're using very specific lenses, our lighting, the way that we craft the scenes, the way that we tell the story achieves an emotional authenticity, but it's not necessarily authentic or real to everyone's experience, or even how the world looks, just, you know, in general. It's more of an impressionistic take on it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Zendaya, do you want to chime in?
I also, obviously want to. This always ends up turning me hyping everyone up, but I really do mean it. I think, something that Sam has been able to do, I think, with Rue, and is this obviously it's a character dealing with addiction, and for it to be written and him to be so open about with me, and with obviously now the world, with his life, his stories, and the way his brain works, and in turn Rue's brain works. And I think that for example, like one of my favorite episodes is episode 7, which closely deals with a Rue in the middle of the manic episode, and it was one of my, what I think, I think, you know, is one of the most brilliant things I've ever read, you know, and Sam knows this because I've said it many times to him. But I think what was beautiful about that is seeing people's reactions to it, because I felt when I read it, people needed needed that episode, because it felt like, you know, putting words to something that maybe, or articulating a feeling that maybe, you know, somebody may not be able to figure out, to say like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I feel. That's what it feels like, you know, to not feel alone in those experiences, to not feel like you're the only one that's going through what you're going through, to feel like, again, back to the idea of feeling seen and feeling understood in a different kind of way. And so that, I think, was just, you know, a beautiful look at, you know, putting words to something that I think a lot of people didn't really quite know how to articulate. And I just thought that it was beautiful, especially seeing when it came out, people's like connection to it. And I think just in general to, you know, all the characters, but really having that human look at addiction and what it does to relationships, to a family, but also still having empathy and again, empathy and understanding for Rue, because we all root for her and we want her to be okay, and we know that she's good, and we want her to be okay. Like, we want her to accept the good in her life. We want her to have these beautiful things. And so when she does mess up, and when, you know, she does relapse, she does, you know, there is we I guess we still
root for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know,
to be okay.
I was going to say, one of the interesting things about episode 7, and it was, and it's specific to television, and it's just in terms of it. I don't think we'd be able to do that in any other medium, because when we started shooting the series, we started with the 4th episode, so we shot everything out of order, and I think it was Zendaya's first day. And she, you know, she got to set, and there was a scene between Jules and Rue, and we're, you know, and we were shooting it, and I kept watching the scene. And I thought, well, you know, and you know, I kept thinking, well, this is like, it's really fascinating, like her physicality, her movement here, and then at the same time, Hunter and I we're having, you know, these other conversations about where the character goes and where Jules goes, and so 7, that episode, I had written while shooting, after I got to know both of them as actors and sort of these ideas. So I started to kind of infuse everything into the scripts. And then while shooting, HBO they made me do so many rewrites on that particular script that I literally fell into a depression on like a Friday night after work one night. And I went back and I watched Love Island for like 22 straight hours of Love Island, and I was laying in my bed, and it was dark. It was really dark, and then Kevin Turn, my producer, came over, and he said, what's going on? And I said, dude, I don't know. I can't get out of bed. I'm watching Love Island, everything. And he just said, yeah, but tell me about it. And I started just telling it to him. And then, you know, at that point, that's what became the whole episode. So I kind of took Z's experiences, Hunter's experiences, my own, and just kind of infused it all into one episode as we sort of went along, which is kind of the beauty of television, because that kind of experimental stuff isn't, you know, film doesn't necessarily allow for it all the time if you're making a movie, because you're going to complete this one job and that's it. But yeah.
I think with Euphoria, when I first watched it, I mean, it's not necessarily my generation, but the stories of addiction and kind of being misunderstood and not being seen and crying for help, and you can't really get it, or you don't know how to get it, hit. I think what makes Euphoria, I'm not just saying this because you guys are in front of me and I'm sucking up to you, but I think that just because the stories hit close to home for me, and even though it's not my generation, I think I felt it within kind of your storytelling and with what Rue was going through. oh my God, I don't want to cry, but just because it does hit close to home for me generally. So let me move on from that before I start bawling.
That means a lot, though.
Yeah. Yeah, let's move on. But so speaking to that, the what, and I think you guys mentioned this a little bit already, but what is some of the meaningful feedback you received about your character or the show in general? Are there any surprising stories or reactions that you have that kind of just caught you off guard? I guess could start with Hunter.
I'm trying to think of like a specific.
The girl you FaceTimed.
Oh my God,
that one too.
Yeah, that was a big one. So Z was like out at some restaurant, and this girl came up to her, and she was like this adorable 13-year-old trans girl, and she like freaked out with Z, and then she asked Z to call me, and Z texted me, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, and then like so I hop on this FaceTime with this girl, and she's like bawling her eyes out, like just like I don't know, it was just like so emotional, and I think like it's like I could see it in her, just the like it's such a special moment when you like recognize yourself on screen, especially when you haven't had that for a lot of people, and like I think she like convinced her dad to let her watch the show, and like just like to be able to see herself in some way, and yeah, it was fucking. Oh wait, sorry.
Oh no, you're fine.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Zendaya, you have any moments where people have come up to you about the show, about Rue?
That was my favorite moment in it. I was just lucky to be a part of making it happen, because I was just like, I was like over there crying. I was at a high stage. I was like, hold on, let me see if she's around. Hold on. Trying to get a hold of her. I was like, are you available? Can I just call you really quick? And then it was a beautiful moment that I just felt lucky to just facilitate. But yeah, I mean there's been overwhelmingly beautiful responses, I think, to people being able to connect to the characters, all of them in different ways. Again, feel seen, feel heard, feel validated in their experiences, which is, I just feel lucky to have been a part of just creating it, at all. I'm just very, very grateful. So, there's nothing much to it other than just feeling extremely grateful. And any time someone does come up to me, it's always like again, it's like try not to cry, because people connect on such a deep level to the work that's been done. So yeah, it's really cool. It's very special.
Sam, you want to add anything there in terms of reactions, just kind of what you've seen people take away from Euphoria?
Yeah, I don't know, this kind of stuff that this is the kind of stuff that gets me emotional when I think about it. Because it's just, I don't know, it's such, it's life can be really tough, and so for anyone that anytime I hear that anyone like relates to it on a really kind of deep level like that, or has some sort of, or shares some story about their own life, it's incredibly moving, because I don't know, at the end of the day, I guess it's not why I write. It's not why I direct per se. But the fact that that's possible, that I can have a feeling and somehow work with such a wonderfully talented cast and crew and make something that's put on a screen that someone else relates to and it opens up some sort of world inside of them is like, that's I don't know, that's fucking pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's about connection and connection with stories, and no matter what outlet it's told in, I think it can happen. I almost cried here. I'm sorry about that, guys. I'm just gonna keep my eyes wide open so it doesn't happen. This is getting emotional. So, but before we have about a couple minutes.